Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jake. I'm so happy you are here today. In today's episode, we will learn how to talk about your weekend in English. Weekends are a great topic for conversation because almost everyone does something fun or interesting on the weekend. Many English learners find it a little tricky to explain what they did during the weekend. But don't worry. Today, I will show you simple words, phrases, and steps to talk about your weekend easily. By the end of this episode, you will be able to tell your friends, classmates, or colleagues about your weekend with confidence. You will also learn some tips to practice speaking naturally in English. So, whether you stayed at home, went out with friends, or did something fun, this episode will help you share your weekend story in English easily. All right, let's get started and learn how to talk about your weekend in English. Now, let's talk about why it is important to talk about your weekend in English. Talking about your weekend is one of the most common topics in everyday conversation. For example, when you meet a friend, a colleague, or even your teacher, people often ask, "How was your weekend?" This is a simple question, but it is also a great way to practice your English. When you talk about your weekend, you can use simple sentences, learn new words, and share your experiences. It helps you feel more confident when speaking English. Also, talking about your weekend is useful because it helps you connect with people. When you share your experiences, others can talk about theirs too. You start having a natural conversation, not just short answers. Even if your weekend was simple, like staying at home or relaxing, you can still talk about it. For example, you can say, "I stayed at home and read a book. I watched a movie with my family." These are easy sentences, but they are perfect for practice. So, talking about your weekend is not just fun. It is a useful way to improve your English, build vocabulary, and speak with confidence. Perfect. Let's create the common words and phrases for talking about your weekend section. I'll keep it simple, detailed, and beginner-friendly, with examples and easy sentences. Now, let's learn some common words and phrases that you can use to talk about your weekend. These words will help you express yourself clearly and sound natural. First, let's start with common activities people do on the weekend. Relax. I relaxed at home. Hang out with friends. I hung out with my friends. Go shopping. I went shopping on Saturday. Watch a movie. I watched a movie with my family. Visit family or friends. I visited my grandparents. Go for a walk. I went for a walk in the park. Play sports. I played football with my friends. These are simple and common words, so you don't need to worry about difficult vocabulary. Next, let's learn useful phrases to start talking about your weekend. I went to example. I went to the mall. I spent time. Example, I spent time with my family. I stayed at home. And example, I stayed at home and read a book. I relaxed by example. I relaxed by listening to music. I enjoyed example. I enjoyed cooking a new recipe. You can combine these words and phrases to make simple sentences. For example, on Saturday, I went to the park and played football with my friends. It was fun. Last weekend, I stayed at home and watched a movie. I really enjoyed it. A good tip is to practice using these words together. For example, take one activity and one phrase and make a simple sentence. Activity. Watch a movie. Phrase, I spent time. Sentence, I spent time watching a movie. Remember, keep your sentences simple. You don't need to use long or difficult words. The goal is to communicate clearly and confidently. By practicing these words and phrases, you will always have something to say when someone asks about your weekend. Great! Now let's write the simple steps to describe your weekend section. This will give learners a clear step-by-step guide to talk about their weekend confidently. Now that we know the words and phrases, let's learn how to put them together to describe your weekend. I will give you 4 simple steps that make it easy to talk about your weekend. Step 1. Start with a time phrase. Always start by saying when something happened. This makes your sentence clear. Examples: on Saturday, last weekend, yesterday. For example, last weekend, I went to the park. Step 2. Say what you did. Next, mention the main activity. Use the words and phrases we learned earlier. Examples: I visited my grandparents. I watched a movie. I went shopping. So now we have, last weekend, I visited my grandparents. Step 3. Add details. Details make your story more interesting. You can add who you were with, where you went, or what you did exactly. Examples: I visited my grandparents and we cooked lunch together. I went to the park with my friends and played football. Step 4. Share your feelings or opinion. Finally, say how you felt or what you enjoyed. This makes your story more natural. Examples: it was really fun. I enjoyed spending time with my family. I felt very relaxed. So, a full sentence can be, last weekend, I visited my grandparents and we cooked lunch together. I really enjoyed it. Remember, you can use these 4 steps every time you talk about your weekend. Time, what you did, details, feelings, or opinion. If you follow these steps, you will always have a simple and clear story to share in English. Now, let's look at some examples of conversations about your weekend. Seeing real examples will help you understand how to use words and phrases naturally. Example 1. Talking to a friend. Friend: hi, how was your weekend? You: hi, my weekend was great. On Saturday, I went to the park with my friends. We played football and had a lot of fun. Friend: that sounds fun. What about Sunday? You: on Sunday, I stayed at home and watched a movie. It was very relaxing. Notice how, in this conversation, you start with time phrases. On Saturday, on Sunday. You talk about what you did. You add details. With friends, played football, watched a movie. You share your feelings. Fun, relaxing. Example 2. Talking to a teacher or colleague. Teacher: hello? Did you do anything interesting over the weekend? You: hello? Yes, I had a good weekend. On Saturday, I visited my grandparents. We cooked lunch together. I really enjoyed spending time with them. Teacher: that's nice. And on Sunday? You: on Sunday, I read a book and listened to music. It was very peaceful. Here we notice the sentences are a little more formal, suitable for teachers or colleagues. We still use time phrases, activities, details, and feelings. Even simple words like read a book, listen to music are enough. Tips for you. Always try to use past tense when talking about your weekend. Go to went, see to saw, have to had. Keep sentences short and clear. Add a little detail about who you were with, where you went, or how you felt. By practicing conversations like these, you will always know what to say when someone asks about your weekend. And remember, it's okay if you make small mistakes. The important thing is to keep talking. Now, let's talk about some common mistakes English learners make when talking about their weekend. Knowing these mistakes will help you speak better and avoid confusion. Mistake 1. Forgetting the past tense. When talking about your weekend, you usually talk about things that already happened. That means you need to use the past tense. Wrong. I go to the park on Saturday. Correct. I went to the park on Saturday. Wrong. I watched a movie yesterday. Correct. I watched a movie yesterday. Mistake 2. Using too many difficult words. Some learners try to use long or complicated words, but this can make sentences confusing. Wrong. I engaged in recreational activities at my residence. Correct. I relaxed at home. Simple words are always better. Mistake 3. Giving too many details or very short answers. Some learners either talk too much and confuse the listener, or say very little and sound shy. Too much. On Saturday, I went to the park, then I met my friend. We played football. Then we ate ice cream. After that, we walked around. Too little. I went out. Better. On Saturday, I went to the park with my friend and played football. It was fun. Mistake 4. Forgetting to share feelings or opinions. Adding how you felt makes your story interesting and natural. Without feelings, I watched a movie. With feelings, I watched a movie. It was very relaxing and fun. So remember, use past tense. Use simple words. Give just the right amount of detail. Share your feelings or opinion. By avoiding these mistakes, you will sound more confident and natural when talking about your weekend. Now, let's talk about some simple tips to practice speaking about your weekend in English. These tips will help you improve quickly and feel more confident. Tip 1. Speak aloud every day. Even if no one is listening, try to say sentences about your day or weekend aloud. For example, I went to the park and played football. It was fun. Speaking out loud helps you remember words and phrases better. Tip 2. Record yourself. Use your phone or computer to record your sentences or short stories about your weekend. Then, listen to yourself. This helps you hear mistakes and improve pronunciation. Tip 3. Practice with friends or online partners. If you have a friend who speaks English or an online language partner, practice conversations about your weekend. You can ask each other, "What did you do last weekend?" This is real practice, just like in a real conversation. Tip 4. Start simple, then add more details. Begin with short sentences first. For example, I watched a movie. Then add details. I watched a movie with my family. It was very relaxing. Gradually, your sentences will become longer and more natural. Tip 5. Repeat regularly. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. Try to talk about your weekend every week. Little by little, you will notice big improvements in your English. Remember, the key is to practice regularly. Speak aloud, and don't worry about mistakes. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. Perfect. Let's create the fun mini exercise section. This will give learners a quick, interactive practice to apply what they've learned. Now, let's do a fun mini exercise to practice talking about your weekend. Don't worry, it's simple and quick. Here's what I want you to do. Take a moment to think about your last weekend. Then, try to say 3 to 4 sentences about it using the steps we learned earlier. Start with a time phrase, last weekend. Say what you did. I went to the park. Add details. With my friends, and we played football. Share how you felt. It was really fun. For example, you can say, last weekend, I visited my grandparents. We cooked lunch together. I really enjoyed spending time with them. Take a minute and try it aloud now. Don't worry if it's short or if you make mistakes. The goal is to practice speaking and get more comfortable using English. You can do this exercise every week, and little by little, you will speak more confidently and fluently about your weekend. Before we finish, I want to give you a little motivation. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes when learning a new language. The important thing is to keep practicing. Every time you talk about your weekend in English, you get better and more confident. So don't be afraid to speak, even if it's just a few simple sentences. You are improving every day. All right, let's quickly review what we learned today. We learned how to talk about your weekend in English. First, we saw why this is useful for everyday conversation. Then we learned common words and phrases like I went to, I spent time, and I relaxed by. We also went through simple steps to describe your weekend. Start with a time phrase. Say what you did. Add details. Share your feelings or opinion. We looked at real conversation examples, talked about common mistakes, and I shared practice tips to help you get better. Finally, we did a fun mini exercise to try it yourself. Now, it's your turn. Try talking about your weekend out loud today. Keep practicing, and step by step, you will speak confidently and naturally in English. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep practicing and have fun with English.